Hi, this is Caitlin,
This is Gabby.
and welcome back to AvengeGirls and Friends.
And so, where did we last leave off? The pit of despair.
That's where we are right now.
That's where we are. That's where everyone is. So, in case you haven't figured it out, this is our Endgame reaction episode.
Yes, it is.
Um,
So
as
spoilers abound,
yes,
first of all.
spoilers abound. As
Like
Eric would say, the big game, the end game.
the end game. Sure was. I said this to my coworker today. I told him I was like he asked me like how the movie was and if it lived up to my expectations, and I just said it sure was a movie. And apparently that said way more than
Oh
I
wow.
wanted to give away. And he was like, "You didn't even use adjectives, but I knew exactly what you meant."
Oh God. Meanwhile, I don't know if you saw me tweet this on my spoiler account, but my UPS guy asked me to spoil the movie for him.
Yeah.
And
Did you?
I did, yes.
Oh my
He asked.
God.
I was like, well, because he asked very specific thing. He is like, oh wait, no, this is spoilers. We're tagging this out the wazoo with spoilers, right? So I
Oh
can
yeah,
say
yeah.
whatever.
You
Okay.
can say this is where this
So
deep
like
in spoiler
he
territory.
asked how it was, and I said it was pretty good. And he's like, okay, was it pretty good or was it fantastic? And I said it was pretty close to fantastic.
Yeah.
He asked something about like he said something about the heroes winning. I was like, yeah, well, they win, but they also kind of lose too. Like I don't think that's that much
Yeah.
of a spoiler because I feel like everyone's expecting like
Yeah.
this is Endgame. This means endings.
Yes.
And he's like, do people die? And I'm like, I'm not gonna tell you that. And then he's like, does Tony Stark die? And I said, I'm not gonna tell you that. And he asked again. I was like, are you sure you want to know? And he said, yeah. Does Tony Stark die? And I was like, yeah, he does.
Yeah.
Like I kind of understand that though, because if I have a favorite character in something,
Yeah.
I want to know going in so I can prepare myself.
I agree. I think if I had known going in that Tony was going to die, I might have came out of the movie liking it a bit more. But I was just so certain that like of all the characters that Tony not necessarily would be safe, but that he should be safe.
Yeah.
Um, that when he wasn't safe, it came as a really hard blow. Same with
Yeah.
Natasha, actually. Natasha was
Yeah.
totally out of left field.
So
One thing I did not guess correctly.
so I actually got spoiled for Nat.
No.
I was okay, and it was my own fault. But like apparently this happens to me all the time. This is my new fucked up tradition, right?
Yeah.
Um so it was the same scenario as when I read the spoiler about Han in Force Awakens actually,
Oh
basically.
shit.
And I figured that was false and then it ended up being true. So I read this and I was like, "Oh shit, Nat's going to bite it."
Yeah.
Um and they didn't give any context at all. They
They were
just
just
said
like
that
Nat
she died.
dies.
They were just like Natasha dies and I was like, "Okay, shit." Um
Fuck.
so but I was reading the comment section on the Mary Sue article, I think, about Thor.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Because
yeah, yeah.
they did go into depth, so I knew it was Thor instead of Cap,
Yeah.
actually, which is what I
I
originally
I
thought.
also knew that just because of our friend Antonina. I follow her spoiler account on Twitter, and she had mentioned that it was Thor, and I'm glad that I knew that going in.
Yeah, I
Because
was
Thor is
wondering if I
very
should tell you. I'm
yeah.
sorry I
No, no,
didn't.
no, it's okay because I knew going in. But Thor is a very near and dear character to my heart, as you know. So that was hard. It was like a slaughter of his character. Sorry, I know we were talking about Natasha, but
Oh
um,
yeah. No, basically I was reading
we'll
the
go back to
comments
all of this.
on either that or the spoiler-free high people
Mm,
review. I can't remember which one.
mm,
And the first few comments were totally fine. They were all
yeah.
spoiler-free, and then I just kept going, which I really shouldn't have done because I know people suck. And it said Nat dies, and I'm like, okay. And I was like, oh, that can't be good. And so as soon as she and Hawkeye were sent to Vormir, I was like, shit.
Yeah. As soon
So
as they said Natasha and Clint, you're going to Vormir, I was like, oh my God, like what? Like, yeah. As soon as they said, Clint and Natasha, you're going to Vormir, I was like, shit, one of them is gonna die. Then it had like
yeah,
a thing where like there's a twist on the Soul Stone, where like like their very love for each other and their willingness to sacrifice for one another instead
Yeah.
of like Thanos just forced that sacrifice on Gamora. Like
Yeah.
I was like, oh, maybe that'll be enough, but then sure wasn't.
I do think that would have been great.
Yeah.
I totally could have gotten behind that.
At the same
No.
time, since we are talking about Natasha, I do think yeah, I'm upset that she basically bowed out of the movie too soon. Um, and also that she wasn't able to be a part of that with all the other women.
Oh, that moment was
Right?
amazing.
It was
My gosh.
amazing, and one of
I
my
was like
favorite
I was
moments.
like she is missing. She deserves to be there. Because she's the
Yeah.
one that said it in Infinity War, and then it's Okoye in this one, right? That
Oh,
says like she's got help,
yeah.
right? So
You're
like
right.
that's good. But
That's
still.
true. I didn't even think about that. I mean, I still wish she could have been
Oh yeah,
there. That's
no, absolutely.
fitting. Yeah. But I mean, all that besides, I think like I also respect the decision to kill her off there. She really fought for that sacrifice. Like it wasn't
Oh
just
yeah.
like an easy peasy thing. That,
She literally fought for that
and it's on
sacrifice.
her terms, and she wants this. She wants to do this for her family. Yeah, literally, like quite literally fought for it.
Yeah.
So I can respect her decision there.
Yeah, and again, so I think so we're just going moving straight into our analysis stuff then, right?
Oh
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
hell yeah.
Okay, good.
This is
So
what we're
like
gonna do.
I had cuz you said she wants to do this sacrifice for her family.
Yeah,
And so I thought that was really great, and also I think that is why they took down that video. Do you remember that video?
yes, yeah, and we,
That you were like, it's missing. Where did it go? Where
yeah,
she's talking about them being her family. And after
yeah,
I watched that, I was like, oh, I bet you like
something. They were like, maybe this is
they were
too
like,
much.
this is too much.
Yeah,
So you had a question about like whether or not it was Hawkeye sacrificing her or her sacrificing herself, if that was enough. And
yeah,
I'd have to watch it again because again, we've
yeah.
only seen this movie once, people.
And we're like in the throes of emotions when we did
Yeah,
it.
still. So I think it would depend on if you argued that he let go of her or if she like wrenched herself out of his grasp,
Which I
you
think she
know,
did.
which I would bet she did because he was devastated.
Yeah,
Oh my God.
in my memory, I mean, again, we were emotional in watching this, and it's hard to remember everything.
Yeah.
But in my memory, I remember her pushing off and forcing her hand, like from with using her
Okay.
feet, pushing off from the cliff and wrenching her hand out. So
Okay.
I think it was her,
Okay. So the way I rationalize it, because that's how you deal with this shit,
of course.
is that her because you're like, well, what is the sacrifice? She's sacrificing her connection to her family basically because
Yeah,
she loves them. They are
yeah,
her family. So
yeah. That it's almost sacrificing. Yeah, like connection maybe is too like weak of a word, like almost like she's giving up her ability to live with her family, you know what I mean?
yeah.
To be with her family, um, to survive and sacrificing herself in order to save them. That
Yeah.
is so noble, and that's why even though like I'm upset she again bowed out really early and couldn't be there for the rest of the scene and get to see her family back together again, at the same time, totally respect her.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it
It
was well done.
also makes me really glad she is coming back for Black Widow though.
Agree. Yeah.
Um and it also makes me really glad we're gonna do Lucy in our mini season.
Yes.
Cause you left too soon.
You left too soon. Please come back. I honestly thought for a little while that like it took me a while to realize that like oh like she's dead dead. Like
Yeah.
I don't think it hit me until like Bruce later on is like
It's bad. You come to the
yeah,
realization at the same time as
yep,
them, and it's really rough.
yeah. Like I was I was doing what Thor was doing. I was like
You're like,
it's
it's
time
fine.
travel magic. Like there's no
Yeah, like
problem
we can
here.
do
What are you
it. We can
talking
fix
about?
it.
Yep,
Yeah.
it's
Um,
harsh.
yeah. Okay. You want to talk about how right
I
you
don't I
are?
want to we can, yeah. Um Yeah, let's do that. So, as it turns out, I was about, would you say about 50% right?
You're,
Or basically all right. The only things I didn't guess were Natasha dying, basically.
yeah, and
Didn't guess
Tony
that.
dying. You didn't
Although
guess that, did you?
knew it was an option, but I think it was more like a personal bias that
Okay.
I didn't want him to
Okay.
die because I'm a big Tony fan. But
Right.
I thought it was on the table. I thought either him or Steve would die.
Yeah.
Um, didn't want either of them to die, but I
Yeah.
thought that they might. Um, but yeah, everything
You were right about the trailer
everything else,
footage. You were right about them killing
yeah,
Thanos. You were right about time travel. How does it
yeah,
feel to be a genius?
feels pretty damn good. And I feel like I do have to give credit to like, everyone online for also doing snooping. Like my conclusions came from a bunch of interviews and like leaked like set like
Hmm.
images. Um, so kudos to the people who leak stuff, I guess. Um,
You are the true heroes.
yeah. And I have to say, like, it was okay. So you know that Coldplay song, where you get what you want but not what you need.
Yes.
That's how I felt about this movie
Oh
because
man.
I got everything I wanted. Like going into this movie, I was like, it has to be about time travel. If it isn't actually about time travel, I'm going to be so upset.
Yeah.
And I got that. I
Well,
was
like, thank
right.
God for that.
Yeah. It was a time travel movie. It was a time travel heist movie, which is what I wanted.
Yes.
Um, which is also fitting because we're not gonna do them right away, but we were gonna do the heist movies eventually, correct?
Yeah, we are gonna do Oceans
Cool,
eventually.
good. Anyways, time travel heist movie. Um, where was I going with this? What was I saying?
You get what you want, but not what you need.
Oh yeah. So time travel heist movie, but then what I needed from this movie was Tony not to die, or actually any of the original six not to die really. Um, did not get that. So that like song was just ricocheting throughout my head
Yeah,
last night after fixing the
definitely
theater.
relevant.
Um, but yeah, it was pretty cool. Like when Thor like cut Thanos' head off, I like me and my sister turned to each other in the theater and like our jaws just dropped open. And she was like, "You were right." Like she's like, "Caitlin, what the fuck?"
You were like, I am a god.
I know how narratives work, kind of.
Kind of.
And I do have to say though, I don't think I would. I've entertained the notion of repeating this process of trying to like guess the story for Rise of Skywalker in
Hmm.
December. I don't think I would do it. Only because like I said, like I got what I wanted but not what I needed, and I think because I built it up so much in my head, it made this experience worse for me almost.
Yeah,
And I don't want that to happen for Rise of Skywalker.
I can definitely understand that. I will tell you, I do not seek out any information
Yeah.
about upcoming movies I'm really excited about, like in franchises. I usually just see whatever you or anyone on my timeline
Yeah.
posts, but like I do not try to guess because you know how emotionally involved I am in Star
Oh
Wars,
yeah, yeah.
but I stay the hell away from it
No,
until I
that's
see it.
smart. That's very
So
smart. And I think like you actually said to me earlier today, you said like this like Tony dying and Nat
this
dying.
is this is your Han
This is
Solo
my
moment.
moment because I think the MCU to me is what Star Wars is to you.
Yeah.
um,
And so
so
for reference guys, so I referenced earlier Han Solo's death in Force Awakens, but what I didn't say at that time was that I didn't believe that spoiler, and I ended up crying all the way home from the theater. Is like a good
yeah,
half hour, 45-minute drive. I was just devastated,
okay.
absolutely devastated. And Tony dying is Caitlin's Han Solo
That's
moment.
yep. It really was. I except I didn't. Well, I did cry a little bit. I cried. When did I cry? This is silly, but I cried when for some reason it hit me when Clint and Wanda were talking of all the times. Um,
Yeah,
I don't know
no,
why. Maybe
that's
because it was just showing the characters like talking and about moving on almost and about other characters that were sad. That's when everything kind of finally hit me. But other than that, like as soon as Tony did the snap and it was evident that he was like actually dying, up until that point, I was so excited. I was clapping and cheering, et cetera, et
Yeah.
cetera, et cetera. And from that point onwards, I literally just like sat in my seat, hands clasped, completely stone faced throughout the rest of the movie. Like no emotion.
Yeah.
I shut down. So
No, I 100% remember that feeling. So
yeah,
like, yeah.
yeah. Yeah, you get it. You were
Yeah,
you understand.
it's really rough, especially when you're not expecting it at all.
Yeah. And I think that's like I mean I've been talking with you all day about this, Gabby. So just for context for everyone else, um I think that like a lot of narratives they kind of give you a promise, right? When they start, especially like series like this.
Hmm.
Like for example, the MCU in my mind has always been like, yeah, it's a bit more like realistic than a lot of the like actual comic sources. But at the end
Right.
of the day, they're still like happy stories. They're still like, oh my God, yeah, you get to see the good guys win and everything is good and it's great. They get to go home in the end. Infinity War flipped those stakes, and it worked because the promise therefore at the end was like, oh, they're gonna find a way to undo it in Endgame,
Yeah.
right? And they did that, but then they almost reflipped them with Tony's death and Nat's death, but I'm focusing specifically on Tony right
Yeah.
now. And I think it was that break of the promise. It was just such a personal betrayal to me. Like I go into these movies expecting sad things sometimes, of course, but at the end of the day, at least for me, the promise is that these guys are going to be okay and they're going to win the day and go home. That did not happen. It's none, this has not happened in any other throughout the entire MCU. This is the only
That's
time
true.
that
They have,
character is integral to the MCU. Yeah.
yeah.
So I think that's like at the heart of like that's why it's hurting me so much and why I can't just like everything else like again like four-fifths of that movie so good, like magnificent storytelling, loved it, was eating it up, but that last fifth of the movie it's hitting me so much harder because I feel like it's broken a promise to me, and it feels really personal because the MCU means so much to me, so I'm taking it really hard, guys.
I'm really sorry, Caitlin.
It's okay, I'll get over it.
I
it's
know, I'm just
it's a
really sorry
story,
that you
but
can't enjoy it as much as you expected, though.
it's okay. It's
Maybe
funny because
someday.
I think I will. We're me and Gabby are seeing it together this time on Wednesday again. I think it's the next
Yes.
that's the only time that we're gonna re-see it, right? Or maybe not the only time, but the next time we're gonna both rewatch it. Is that
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So
I
I think
will
that'll be more
ideally
harder.
get to see it at least one more time, but
Yeah. Um and we'll be doing it with Brad, our friend Brad.
yes.
So I
Who
think
makes a surprise appearance in this movie. The most Hulk-like Brad has ever been.
I was just yeah, I there's literally a part in the movie where I turned to my sister and I usually don't talk a
That
lot
the
during
dab.
movies. Yeah, that entire scene. Well, also, okay, so that scene with the dab, that actually was not, sorry, I'm moving around. That was actually not when I turned to Kelly. The moment where I turned to her was when they're doing the first test with Ant-Man,
Uh-huh.
and Bruce is like, yeah, it's totally fine. I totally know what I'm doing. And then Tasha's like, why are you making that promise? Do you know what you're doing? He's like, I have no idea. And I was like,
It's true. Oh my God.
who would have known that Brad really was the perfect blend of Hulk and Bruce?
It's true. This is
All these-
amazing.
oh my God. So funny. I mean, let's talk about, let's move on from like the sadness and the deep analysis. Let's just talk about Bruce and the Hulk for a moment.
For a moment,
Um,
yes.
for a moment, because there is something to be said about him. Uh, let me just say, I don't know how else to say this. Do we think that Bruce murdered the Hulk?
No, this is a good question.
Did he murder a child?
Right, because we've been characterizing the Hulk as a baby
Yeah.
because he's very young as
Yes.
far as we know.
He doesn't have
Wait,
adult
again,
intelligence.
it's the meme. What's more worse than a killer? The Hulk. No.
No,
Oh, killer.
killer, a child murderer.
I
Um,
it, it
because how
seems
does that
like
work?
because again, this is why I need to rewatch it because I missed the exact wording, I think, and it's not sticking in my brain yet. But like it seems like he said that he like
Wait,
did he
you,
say that he like assimilated him?
which
Which
is
is
that?
a form of murder,
Yes,
right?
I
Like
would
the
say
whole
so.
consciousness is gone. You're just using
Yeah,
his body now,
yeah. Which
which
is
is
that's
also your body. So it's
yes.
weird.
It's weird.
But
It's very weird. It's weird for okay. So I would say pre like Ragnarok Infinity War, I would buy this more because before Hulk, before his like arc in Ragnarok and Infinity War, he wasn't characterized as a separate character, right? It was just
right.
when Bruce gets angry, he becomes the Hulk, right?
Mm.
But then in Ragnarok in Infinity War, it's a completely separate character in
Yeah.
theory,
And
right?
he has a personality.
Yeah.
He has, opinions. He has hard opinions on things.
Tom Lee reference. um, and so for them to suddenly be like, basically, the Hulk is no more because Bruce like took over him and killed him. Like I don't know. I just read it as he killed him. Maybe that's harsh of me, and maybe I didn't read into that correctly, but
Yeah, until we rewatch, that's what we're gonna have to go with.
yeah,
But
agreed. Something I liked about the movie, but I liked when we first meet Thor. Um, and obviously you can tell he's not doing well, clearly,
mhm.
like PTSD, he's has these reactions to things. um I thought the relationship between him and Bruce in that scene was really touching. um
Yes, I did, and I
like
did appreciate that.
yeah, like Bruce was like, you helped me and I want to help you now. And I'm like, there I again I we only saw it once and I was so emotional in the moment and also caught off guard, but we'll talk about that in a moment. You
Yeah.
know why. um but I believe there's a moment where Thor starts to cry, I think, but he's also
Yeah.
angry, pointing at Bruce's chest, and Bruce
Yeah.
kind of like has a comforting hand on him, I believe. I don't know. It was very well done. It was like men being allowed to be vulnerable, right? Both of them. And that's, I think, always my favorite part about Bruce and Thor's relationship. They're just always very real with each other. And shipping goggles aside, like it was good. It was very beautiful, and I
Yeah.
appreciated that. But then,
However,
yes, but then when we went back,
yes.
John Mulaney reference too. Um,
Someday we'll count them.
so I don't necessarily have the words, but I'm so disappointed
Yeah.
with Thor's entire portrayal, his entire mini character arc in Endgame. Um, the the fat suit thing was terrible and disgusting and truly unnecessary, I think, because they honestly could there are easier ways to show PTSD's effect on people without resorting to stereotypes or shaming people. Um,
Yeah. As we
and
saw in Iron Man 3, like we
exactly.
know they have the tools to do this, and the
Yes.
fact that they didn't was
Yep.
really awful.
And like, sure, if you want to show that Thor, puts on weight and drinks beer and plays video games all day, sure, but don't treat it as a punchline.
Yeah, that's
Treat it as, yeah,
yeah, like
like,
honestly, I again because especially because it is a symptom caused by the
yes,
PTSD, even the putting on weight and the alcoholism. I mean, the alcoholism is obviously a problem, but like I wouldn't have had any issue with them doing that if they had just treated it seriously.
if
Like
they had just been worried about him. The only
or
character who
yeah,
shows worry for Thor in that state is Bruce. Everyone
yeah,
else is like, God, you gotta get it together, man, or get out of here because we don't need you. Like that's basically how everyone
yeah,
else reacts to him. Like this man is clearly hurting, and
yeah,
feels incredible guilt, and like is probably not the only person on the earth feeling that way at that moment. And you're just reducing him to a fat joke, like
Yeah.
it was really unfair. And that was his entire character arc through the entire movie.
I
Like I kept
know.
thinking he
And
would get better. And he kind of does after the moment with Frigga.
yeah.
Um, and I really appreciate that moment. I do. Um, I'm really glad that he got a moment with his mom finally after not
Hmm.
being able to say goodbye to her, and that she is the one who's able to inspire him again. I thought that was very beautiful. But still, I don't think it excuses
And
the
then
rest
she
of it.
ruined it.
She did ruin it by making a salad joke. I was like, we were so close. You were so close, Frigga. Or not
Yeah.
even Frigga, the writers, because it's the writers' fault.
Yeah. Mm.
It's very frustrating.
I'm just and
And yeah,
I'm also disappointed on a whole other level because, you know, these are the writers and the directors and the actors' choice. Like, how many people did this go through and they were like, "Oh, that's fine." Like, really? Come
like
on.
quite a few people. Yeah. I mean, Chris Hemsworth was clearly okay with it, which does
Yeah.
not surprise me. He doesn't strike me as someone who is very conscious of things, and what
Yeah.
is correct or incorrect to do. Um, but then again, the writers, the directors, there's a bunch of shit going on here. Um, Also, what I think maybe, I mean, all of this is hurtful because again, Thor's character is reduced after such great character development in Infinity War and Ragnarok is suddenly
Yeah.
reduced, a joke the entire movie. Um, but it also bothered me. There's a part when he's in Asgard and he's Rocket's like, oh, you have to go charm Jane or whatever to seduce her, and
Hmm.
Thor's like, I can't do it. I can't even be here. Like this is like because he's literally in the place where suddenly everyone he cares about is alive and in one place, and he starts having a panic attack, and he
Yeah.
says so, and Rocket just slaps him and tells him to get it together. That hurt.
Ye-
I was like, as someone who does suffer from panic
Yeah.
attacks, and again who relates to Thor a lot,
Yeah.
not good, not okay.
And
Um,
as someone who's had a panic attack and who loves Rocket, I was really
yeah,
disappointed in him. I mean, he's not known for his sensitivity because I mean, he
no,
likes
clearly.
to steal disabled people's,
Accoutrement.
prosthetics, prosthetics,
Yeah.
um, which is also bad. But like, oh God, that was so bad.
And again, like the way that they could have, if they wanted to have that in there still, the way they could have played it was Rocket, I'm having a panic attack. Rocket shaking him maybe and being like, calm down, like you have to get yourself together. Not calling him basically a sissy and like, are you crying? Like, and
Yeah,
no physical violence. Like there are ways to play that if you want to make it a character choice. Sure, like you can do it, but there are certain ways to go about doing so.
no,
Um,
definitely.
which I think is actually just like, a microcosmic scale for what my problem with this entire movie. There are a lot of things that they did where, if they had done them in a little bit of a different way,
Yeah,
I would have been okay with it.
the Caitlyn that would alter the timeline.
We are not talking about time travel yet. Not yet.
Yet,
Not yet. We're getting there. I have a whole list, you guys. I
pretty
made a
good.
whole Twitter. I have a private Twitter. Don't worry, not spoiling anyone purposely, but I have a private Twitter in which I made a whole thread about all of the paradoxes that the time travel in theory, if it works the way that we're meant to believe it works, you'll see. We're gonna talk about it. Don't worry, we're gonna
Caitlyn
to.
is smart about time travel, and I'm dumb about time travel. So that entire segment is just going to be me sitting here in awe, listening to her be like, "Oh yeah, oh my God, that makes perfect sense. Of course, that's a problem." So
Oh,
it'll be
just
good.
wait. Just wait. Okay. Well, we'll try to get there. We'll see. Do we want to talk about well, let's try to get through all of the things that we didn't like first, so then we could talk about all of the really great things because there are a lot of really great things in here.
Okay. Um, what things did I not like? There was, in comparison to you, I feel like there was
Less.
very little that I didn't like. One thing aside from Thor, obviously, that I was I hesitate to say that I didn't like it, but I also don't want to say that I did because I'm not sure what way it is meant to be taken. And that is when Steve is in the elevator and he says Hail Hydra
Mm.
to get them off his case. Um, because I don't know how people could not be aware of that infamous Cap is secretly a Nazi comic arc, which was
Yes.
awful.
Yes. I
So
do
I'm not
feel
sure.
like it was a nod to it.
Yeah, it clearly was, but the my problem with it is let me see where I wrote it down somewhere. Um, it's probably bad to include because like in real life we had that comic arc, you know,
Yes.
and people were cool with that and like thought it was great, and I'm like, what the hell is wrong with you?
Yeah.
Um, and the other reason though is because is an in-universe reason, and that probably means in universe they think Steve is actually a Hydra agent.
Oh, don't worry. I have a whole point on that in my time travel section.
Okay, good. Because like I'm really concerned about that. I'm like, oh my God,
Hmm.
they actually think Steve is a member of Hydra, and
Yeah.
that's like so bad because he said it before he took the stone out of the timeline. So when he resets that, they're
Exactly.
gonna think he's
Exactly.
a Hydra agent. What the fuck, you guys? You,
Don't worry.
so
Don't worry.
I
You are allowed to worry actually because it is dangerous.
mm, bad. So in theory, it's an interesting nod to the comics and maybe even intended to be kind of like a what the hell were you thinking, we're gonna take this back for and use it for good,
Hmm.
but I don't think it was, especially if you know your time travel thing is true, which I'm inclined to believe it is, like it totally backfires. Like
Yeah.
people think Cap is part of Hydra now.
Yeah.
Look.
So, I mean, not that I'm gonna go too much in depth to it, but I do use it as a piece of my time travel in this is weird and creates plot holes segment that will be coming up soon. So we will get back to it. But I hear you and I agree, and I think it is very dangerous for Cap. But again, we'll go back to that in a little bit.
So I think that and like aside from yeah, so aside from Thor and that and Tony's death, which I actually surprisingly was very sad about actually. I was like I didn't actually think they would do it. Um
Yeah.
but other than that, I really had no other. Oh, and Nat. Yeah, sorry, Nat.
Yeah.
I forgot about
Yeah.
you again. But like, I really did not have any other major grievances with it.
Okay. We briefly touched on this when we discussed this last night, our initial thoughts. And so I think you disagree, but I did not like Steve's ending at all.
I'm
Um,
rationalizing it because I understand what's wrong with it also.
okay, that's good.
Okay,
Okay,
so
so
like
let's
get
talk.
it out and
Yeah,
then we'll
let's
talk
talk
about it.
about it. So I I can, like you said, like I can respect what they were going for, in that they were trying to complete his story arc in what they think made sense, and link it back to Peggy, his one true lover or whatever. But I thought it was already established that he'd moved on. Sharon Carter, anyone?
Yeah,
Which
but
is
then we
weird in and
never
of
see
it.
him with her again. So like, I don't know if I
Exactly.
buy that.
Yeah. But number two, or B, I guess I was going by letters.
Whatever, it's the same.
Whatever. Um, I think it was very out of character for Steve, and that it was a very selfish decision. Um, his entire character arc throughout every single movie that he has been in the MCU has been about his inability to stop the fight, right? He's
Hmm.
always got to be moving. He can't sit still. He always has to fight for people and can't sit by, watching injustice just happen. That's who Steve is. And
Hmm.
that's why I forget when we talked about this initially, but my thought for him was that he should have been would have been the one to die, because that is a more fitting end to his character arc. Like he can't stop the fight, so he's gonna stop the fight by, sacrificing himself or what have you.
Yeah.
So the fact that
Thereby completing the cycle that
exactly
of first Avenger. No, I would have been able to rationalize it then too. By that, I was like,
yes,
narratively, that
yeah,
makes sense, and I'm okay with
yes.
that. But
So it's just frustrating that instead they had him suddenly randomly, like, no other real build up or emotional send off, and he's just suddenly like, you know what, I'm gonna settle down. And this actually does relate to I have a lot to say about it in my time travel stuff, so I won't get into it necessarily right here because it involves a lot of time travel speak. But let's say, okay, so he went back in time and he stayed there, right? Is what we see at the end. If that is to be true, that means that he would have to be basically in hiding because everyone knows who Captain America is. People recognize him. That there's a reason why Tony stepped in front of him in that elevator so the woman wouldn't see him. You're telling me that Steve went back in time to a time where prejudice and injustice runs rampant and just sat back and relaxed with Peggy? You're telling me that Peggy Carter was able to not do anything?
Yeah.
Like that's bullshit.
Okay. So this was my thing. And again, rationalization, kids, it's a hell of a drug. Which I love and it helps me. So first of all, I want to say, like, yes, I see all the problems in it inherent in this, but I have also only ever wanted Steve to be happy and rest
fair.
and live out his life the way he would have if he hadn't gotten the super soldier serum, just to like be happy and be normal. So, okay, I'm gonna cry. It's fine.
It's okay.
Okay. So my guess, headcanon, whatever you want to call it, is that while he's putting all the stones back, he saved one of them for last, and I think it would have had to be the time stone, obviously, right?
Yeah.
He saved that for last and went further back into the past to do all this, to have his life with Peggy. I don't think that necessarily means that he wouldn't have fought. I don't think it necessarily means that he wouldn't have protested against injustice or anything. I think he went back and he had his life and then returned the time stone to where it was supposed to be and then came back. I don't think again, I don't understand time travel because I'm an idiot. So like maybe there are holes in it. But
yeah,
that's
like, my mind's trying to wrap around
like that's
that,
what I want to believe happened. That he went even further back, and for a second I was like, maybe he even went back to pre-serum, but we saw a shot of him dancing with her where he still was like, bulky Captain America. So like, but I want to think that's what happened, that he found a way to have the world he wanted and the world that is at the same time.
And see, I would have loved that if they had actually shown that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because like I am extrapolating a lot here.
Yeah, I think it's a failure, as with most things, of the writing. I feel like they could have shown that pretty easily with one extra scene with Steve.
I wonder if they. Do you think they expected us to guess that's what happened, or?
I don't think so, because I feel I've read a couple of articles on like the whole time travel thing, and a lot of people are just really confused with how he's even able to do that.
Yeah.
So I think if they did expect people to do it, that was a failure on their part because no one was able to extrapolate as much as you did.
Yeah.
I think it might be just because we're writers and our minds work that way maybe. But again, I think it's a failure of the writing. I think they could have done, like I said, they could have done that easily by having one extra scene with Steve instead of like the way that they showed it. They did it specifically for the shock value.
Yeah.
By having him
true.
not come back and then pan over to him, old man sitting there. If
Yeah.
they had shown one extra scene of Steve like looking at, let's say, the time stone with like a certain look on his face before
You're
going,
right.
totally would have. I could have seen that.
So I need your time travel blessing on this. That this is because in my mind that's what happened because that's the only way I can rationalize
Is it?
like because you're right. I don't think Steve would have not fought. I don't think Steve would have been content to sit still. So the only logical explanation I have is he went back and didn't crash, won the war, you know,
That would make
and then
sense.
got to live life and continue to be this person because they never said that he wasn't.
Yeah.
And so until they disprove that, it's true to me.
I think I think it could work. Um, without getting too much into the time travel concept right now. Um, I've seen people theorize that, and again, I would have to watch the movie again just to make sure. But I've seen people theorize that the whole, you have 5 seconds, but you can take as long as you want. It's 5 seconds to us, Bruce says, but it's however long he needs. I think
Mm-hmm.
they could have, it could be that, like, instead of using the time stone, like you said, he just takes those 5 quote unquote seconds to return all of the stones, but uses his pim particles at different times. So like he does go through, he lives an entire life. He uses the pim particles to return to that moment, just late. Um, that could be, but it
Okay,
all
I could
depends
also
on,
be down with that too.
yeah. It's a similar vein to what you were saying. But again, it depends on the type of time travel this movie wants to be, and it's all over the place. But we'll
And they're
get to
never going
that.
to explain it adequately. So
No,
like
they
we
will
can think
never.
whatever we want. To me,
True.
like that just means like this is it
True.
in my book.
True. It's all about rationalization, as you
It
say.
is. It really is. So my only other thing that I did have a problem with that though is that it it kind of sucked that he left Bucky behind.
Yes.
I'm not even saying this is a Steve Bucky shipper.
Oh
I'm
no, no,
saying
no.
this is his best friend. And
It's
you
yes.
didn't give him the
I agree.
option to get old.
Yeah. Um, I didn't even think
And
about it that
also
way.
how did Steve get old? Does the
Yes.
serum prevent you from getting old?
Yes.
Okay,
And so it's another plot point, but
I
a
have
plot hole
another
rather.
theory. So like my friend Michelle who we saw this with asked like I asked her if there was anything she wanted to say on the podcast. I would say it for her and she's like I want you two to explain how Steve is old now. She's like I don't care what else you talk about, explain that. I'm like, oh my god, okay. And then
You have
Ethan
a
is
theory?
on my other side and he says maybe Steve had to sacrifice the serum to return the soul stone. Again, totally a theory.
Interesting.
But like
Interesting. I
if it
like
prevents
it.
him from aging, the only way he could get
Yeah.
old is if he had to give it up. And that's the only logical place I can
It's
think
so
that he would have to give it up.
it's so frustrating.
Yeah, I know.
Because again, like I love theories as much as the next person, and you know this,
Oh
but
yeah.
it's just so frustrating when it comes at the expense of actual good storytelling.
Yeah.
Um,
We
I
shouldn't
hate
have to fill in the blanks quite as much as
exactly,
we are right now.
exactly. It's so annoying that we're even having to consider like how can Steve get old? Let's fix this because it's never going to be fixed in canon. That shouldn't be our job. It
Yeah.
shouldn't it like fandom's job is to fill in the other gaps, the fun gaps. This is something that's pretty integral to the story, I would argue.
Right.
You know?
Unless there's something I missed somewhere. Like maybe the serum lets you get old, but it doesn't let him like drink. It doesn't let him
Yeah.
get tired. Do we even know if he sleeps? Like
I've never seen him sleep.
I
Have you ever seen Steven sleep in the same room?
have not.
um, yeah, it's that sure is another plot hole that we as, fans are now left to fill
So
in.
again, that is my other theory is that he sacrificed the serum to return the soul stone because we only know how it gets out and not how it gets in.
Which again, I mean, going
And
back to
also, what
my
did
like
that
fuck
look
the
like?
stones theory, fuck the stones.
He had to go return it to Red Skull. Like what
Yeah.
happened?
Also, in a similar vein, I think it's funny that Steve has canonically been to Asgard.
That's true. Yeah.
Like, just a little fun fact, but I think that's funny.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Um, but okay, let's move on to the things that we did like because there were a lot of things that we liked in this movie.
Yes. And
Um,
number one is that we are the dream team, Caitlin. We
we
are the
really are.
dream.
It's true. It's so good.
I was the first one in the theater to scream yes when Steve had Mjolnir in his hand.
Yep.
I was like,
Yep.
oh my God, I have
The
waited for this.
the audience reaction to that was almost worth like the entire movie experience in all 10, whatever plus years of
Yeah.
the MCU and hearing everyone go like holy shit.
And like Thor's joy when he's like, I knew
Yes.
it. Like
I
he
knew
he
it.
did know.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah.
It made
And
me
also
very, very
the
happy.
the part where Steve has Stormbreaker and Thor has Mjolnir and he's like, no, 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 you give me that. You take the small one. I was like, big mood.
That's legit.
Me
I
too.
just
Give me the big one.
oh that made me so happy. Um so
It
like
was
yeah.
so thrilling.
Um
That
uh
was one of the best moments.
that was one of the best moments for me. Another one was when Strange summoned everyone and everyone was
On your
coming through the
left.
portals. Okay,
Yeah.
on your left, yes. But when
Yeah.
he summoned everyone and you see everyone standing there
And
and
then
Steve
Avengers.
says Avengers assemble.
Yeah.
But the key thing there
Oh my God.
is that at that moment everyone gets to be an Avenger. Like everyone.
Yes.
Everyone that is there is an Avenger. I'm
Yeah.
gonna cry. It's fine. Oh my
So
God.
so thrilling. Such a good scene. And that like oh my God, I was like running on cloud nine. That is what I want from MCU films. Like that kind of collaboration and random, team ups and like, you know, Spider-Man is riding on Valkyrie's horse, like,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
or Pegasus, I'm sorry. Um, but holy shit, so good. And
Mm.
then, of course, the part that I actually liked a little bit better than that, not as much as the Mjolnir moment, but the mini A-Force moment. We've literally been
Yes.
asking for this the entire podcast.
It's true, we have.
And I still
And I
think they should
felt
make a
that.
movie. Yeah. But holy shit, that moment. Oh my God.
That was
I think
great.
I was screaming more during that part than I was during the on your left part. Like
Give
honestly.
me, oh, I cannot wait for like a screen cap of that. I'm gonna hang it on my
Oh no.
wall.
I
Oh my
actually
God.
might print it out. Yeah. You know that like do it for her or do it for him sign?
Yes, do it
Maybe
for
do it
them.
for them.
Also, this is
Oh my
really
God.
minor, but I told you I was really excited about this. I'm going to talk about it because we're talking about lady superheroes. I was really, really happy to see a female superhero with hair as short as Carol's in
Short
this.
hair Carol.
It's still a
Oh
little bit
my
long,
God.
but
No, it was
that
so
is the
good.
shortest we've ever
She's
seen one
so
with, I feel
fucking
like. And
hot.
I was, oh my God, it made me really happy.
It made me happy for a different reason.
There aren't, I know, oh no, I mean, me too, but like, there aren't enough female action heroes with short hair.
Oh no.
Like,
Yeah.
give them to me.
Yeah. You were
So,
like in that moment, I am Carol.
I am Carol. I did think that actually. I was like, yes.
Also, her new outfit. She has the sash. I was like, oh my God, that's like her comic book outfit.
Yeah, yeah.
I really dig it, and I hope she has that whole ensemble for, Captain Marvel 2 or whatever. I want a whole movie of being able to look at her with that beautiful short hair.
Yeah.
Just take it in the entire movie. Brie Larson, if you're out there, I am still single. Just saying. What
Also,
else?
I feel like I need to say this because I feel like we've been kind of like talking about the problems with it since we started the podcast.
Yeah.
Gwyneth Paltrow came through.
She did. She really did.
He did.
Like,
And I
she
was
was great
pleasantly
in this movie.
surprised.
Yeah. She was okay, so I know
There
last
was
time we
real
mentioned
emotion. um,
she was the last movie she was this good in was in Iron Man 2. I loved her and I honestly did love her in Iron Man 2. Um but this movie, oh my God. Genuine emotion, like and she actually finally understands that Tony has to do
I know.
this, like
She
after
supported the
all this
hero thing.
time.
That's what we were complaining about in the last
Yeah, the
episode.
entire
And her
time we
prayers
were
were
like,
answered.
I was like,
Oh my
maybe
god.
pepperoni is good.
It could be. I'm I tweeted the other day, I only like Wanda Vision in Infinity War, and I only like
You,
pepperoni in this.
that's real. That's very real. Infinity War made me like Wanda and Vision,
Yep.
and Endgame made me like Tony and Pepper. That's
Yep.
true.
Here we are.
I think I also really appreciate, well, actually, okay, for that. I'll get back. I was going to mention Morgan, but I'm not there yet. I want to focus on Pepper right now. Um, I just love that she finally gets like she joins the fight too. Like she's
Yeah.
rescue. I mean, they don't call her rescue,
But we all
but
know.
we all know it's rescue. It's that oh my god! And seeing her fight back to back with Tony, like it looks like she's practiced. So I feel like almost what made her understand like Tony was right all this time and he needs to be doing what he's doing was losing everyone the snap. Because I think that's when she probably started to take it seriously.
Yeah, probably. Also, petition to call it what I've been seeing it called on Tor.com. Tor.com, by the way, guys, they have a lot of really good articles about
They
Endgame
do
on there right now, so you should go read all of
really do.
them. That is not sponsored. I just love them a lot.
Yeah.
But anyway, they've been calling it the Snapture.
I love that. I have also heard that before. I think Tor.com might have, I feel like they might have originated that actually, like back when Infinity War happened.
So today was the first time I'd ever heard that, I think, but I love it.
Oh my God, really? I'm
Yeah.
sorry I haven't used it in your presence
No,
before.
it's fantastic. I love it so much.
Um, but yeah, it's good. So the snapshot made Pepper realize that Tony was right.
Yeah.
Um, she
I feel
she
like
now
that
knows.
was probably a turning point for a lot of people.
Yeah. And I would argue Morgan also made her help maybe realize things. Um, like this is someone who I need to protect. So she's going to
Yeah.
learn how to fight maybe. That's how I would do if I suddenly got a kid. That makes it sound like she just found Morgan on the road instead of giving birth to her.
Oh boy.
Motherhood. Um, but let's talk about Morgan real quick though, because
Yeah, she's cute.
she's so cute. She loves him 3000. Oh
Tony
my
as a dad
God.
is good,
Tony as a
actually.
dad is so good. My mind, like RDJ's mind. So cute, so good. I love them. I love that her name is Morgan. I believe that's what Tony dreamt the kid would be named in Infinity War. Um, if you remember
Mm,
that. Morgan
yes,
after
yeah,
your
yeah,
the
yeah.
uncle. Um, so that was a nice little callback. She was adorable. Um, she's gonna grow up a little bit sad though, unfortunately. But she'll have all this, family that Tony left behind. This found family,
Yeah.
which is good. Sorry, I'm sad.
No, it's okay.
Let's think. Oh, okay. Let's talk about. Let's ignore the sad things. Let's talk about the entire Battle of New York scene.
Oh, yes, that's important because oh God,
Yes.
we've got to stop that because I was literally just looking at my notes and I saw that note. I was like, we should do that. So
Battle of New York.
yes,
I literally could have spent an entire movie just right there, seeing what happened after the Battle of New York.
after
It was
during
so
the
good.
parts we didn't get to see really, yeah, that was fantastic. Um,
Yeah.
feel bad for the Hulk. He has to
Um,
take the stairs.
Also, can we I just need to point out, like, this happened, right? Like,
No, it happened.
Tony quickly says that he checks out Steve's ass, like, routinely.
I mean, it's hard not to. It's right there.
And, like, I didn't dream that. Like,
And then they managed to top that
but
by making Steve check out his own ass, which is
ah!
something I didn't know I needed, but here we are. That is
You did.
America's ass.
That is America's
It
ass.
is.
It
It's
is,
true.
Steve. You're right.
Right,
Oh
it
my
is.
God. My like little like Steve Tony heart, I was like, this is more than I thought I would ever get.
Yes, that level of acknowledgement. Oh man, if you had told me back in like 2012
Yes,
when I was peak
yes.
super husband shipping that I would get to hear them say
I
that
think I would
Tony
have
was checking out
combusted on
Steve's
the
ass.
spot.
Oh boy, that would have been a lot.
Like,
Oh man.
oh my God. Like I'm crying just thinking about it. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I know that's okay. And on one hand, it's like that's pretty bad that they gave us literal scraps and we're like, oh my God. But on the other hand, uh, they gave us scraps, and I wasn't expecting any scraps at all from the dinner table. So
True.
I would
Um,
just like to say thank you.
yeah, thank you. We appreciate that. A little bit more next time.
Pretty please.
Um, and I also love that Steve said I could do this all day to himself.
And then
Um,
he's like, yeah, I know.
you're like, no, shut up. You're so annoying. I do wish he had said that to Thanos when he was fighting Thanos, but maybe more than once a movie is too much.
Yeah. I felt like I thought he was going to say it, and then I was like, but he won't because he just got annoyed at his old self for saying it. There's no way he would
I
say it
know.
again.
So that was a little bit disappointing, but that would have
Yeah.
been so good.
And maybe it was too much on the head if he would have said it. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I kind of like what happened. But
Anyway, back to the down dark.
anyways,
My bad.
so Tony definitely checked out Steve's ass. I just want to say thank you, and we can move on. But that happened, and I did not dream it, and I did not write it. I would have written it. So it gets 5 out of 5 stars from me, that scene.
Oh yeah,
Um,
5 of 5 stars.
5 out of 5. Um, what else? I feel like also thinking of the Battle of New York scene, everything that happened in there pertains a lot to my like my time travel
Yeah.
rant that I will go. Is there anything else you wanted to say before I
So
start that?
my only other two things, and one of them is probably gonna lead into yours actually. Um, oh no, three things, sorry. So A, my thanks, Marvel, to you for letting Steve swear a lot in this movie. I really
Yes.
appreciate that. Mostly because every time someone says language when Cap swears, I'm like, he was in the army. Come on, give me a
Of
break.
course he swears.
He
Yeah.
swears. So I would like to thank not only God, but also the MCU. And uh the Steve Tony Do You Trust Me? How
Oh
happy were
my
you? Because I know that's your favorite. I
God. Oh
literally, as
my
soon
God.
as they said that, I was like, oh my God, Caitlin's in heaven right now.
I
Like she died.
yes, because okay, fun fact for those of you who do not know me well or do not know this part about me, but two things. One, I really like, this is gonna sound weird when I say it. I really like hands, and like imagery of hands and what they symbolize. So the very act of like those two shaking hands over such a that kind of dialogue, oh my God. Like you said, yeah. Second of all, the do you trust me scene in Aladdin, where Aladdin holds out his hand to Jasmine. This happens 2 times in Aladdin for those of you who have not seen the movie. I don't know why you haven't seen the movie, but Jasmine or Aladdin does it when he's Aladdin, and then he does it when he's pretending to be Prince Ali, and that's what makes Jasmine realize that it's actually Aladdin. But he says, "Do you trust me?" And she says, "Yes,"
Yeah.
or "I do," or something like that. I actually haven't seen the movie in a while. And they clasp hands. He pulls her, and it's a whole new world. And it's beautiful, right? And it makes me
Yeah.
cry because I love Aladdin. It's one of my favorite Disney movies. Um, so the fact that I'm like getting emotional, the fact that they did that with Steve Tony, aka like Steve Tony again. For those of you who are just now tuning in, it's like one of my ships. Like I will go down with this ship kind of ship. The fact that they did that with one of my favorite like Disney quotes almost. Oh my God. Oh my God.
There were some parts of this that like I'm sure like there are other fans out there feeling this. There have
Yeah.
to be, but like there are some parts of this movie where I'm like, this was written for you and me. Like
Yeah.
this is
Oh,
exactly
yeah.
what we have been talking about.
Yep. This was this was our movie. Yeah. As
Yeah.
much as like again, as you've all heard in the beginning of this podcast, overall there were like a lot of things in the end that I did not like. But 4/5 of the movie, like a really solid 4/5 of the movie, I loved it so much. I was in love with this movie. Um, I am in love with it. I think I would go so far as to say it was a really good movie. And it literally ticked all of those boxes for both of us. That's amazing. Like
Yeah,
I don't know if
definitely.
again, like you said, how many other fans feel that way. Um, but it did feel like a proper send off in that regard, at the very least.
Definitely. So my
Um,
last Battle of New York thing is Loki. Where are you going?
this does lead in.
Hmm.
So, I mean, do you have anything more to say about
No,
Loki?
I'm like, where did he
Cool.
go and what's happening?
Okay, so
Settle in, folks.
time travel time. So, I'm going to start with a hopefully brief overview of the different types of time travel you find in fiction, right? So, the first one is like a closed time loop type of time travel. Ergo, everything that happens has already happened. So like think like Harry Potter, Prisoner of Azkaban,
Okay.
Hermione throwing those little stones to get herself to turn around and realize that what's his name is coming. So she
Hmm.
leaves. That always happened. It wasn't her creating a new timeline when she went back. That was just always part of the loop. It
Yeah,
was always
it
supposed to
never didn't happen.
happen. Exactly.
Okay.
That's one type of time travel. The other type of time travel, or another type, is where it's the butterfly effect, right? So it's that one short story, forget what it's called, where they go back in time and they have to stay on the path because if they step off the path and they accidentally kill a butterfly, that'll have ripple effects throughout time and everything will change. It will create an alternate timeline, an alternate universe, if you will. Um, so in this short story, again, I should probably find out what this is called. Whatever. So this man, he's in the past. He steps off that path that they have laid out. You can only go on this path. He does kill a butterfly, hence the butterfly effect. And because of that, when he returns to the future, it's a completely different future because he's not returning to his own future. He's returning to
Okay.
the future that he accidentally created by changing things in the past. So that's type 2 time travel.
Okay.
Type 3, kind of. It's almost a mishmash of those in which you go back in time and things were supposed to happen, but there are certain events that always have to happen. This is like kind of Doctor Who type of time travel. Or like say like Doctor Who can try time travel back in time and affect little things and save people, but he can't change say World War II from happening. Like that
Okay.
has to happen.
Or like Van Gogh dying. Like he ended
Yes,
up dying anyway.
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. There are just certain things that are immovable points in time that you cannot change, but you can change things around those points in time. And I think that in theory, this is what um, the Avengers Endgame was trying to be. And those fixed points in time were just translated to the stones, right?
Okay.
So when Bruce goes back to the Battle of New York with everyone else, he goes to the ancient. Well, he doesn't know he's going to the ancient one. He thinks he's going to Doctor Strange. He ends up finding the ancient one because he's too early, and she has the time stone. And he says, "Hey, I need the time stone because blah blah blah." And she says, "No, you can't because if you take the time stone, it creates an alternate universe where your universe will be fine because you took it and you saved everyone. But our universe doesn't have that time stone anymore. Ergo, it's the type 2 that type 2 time travel, right? Where you're changing the past and it creates a ripple effect and bad things happen." And he says, "Oh no, no, no. But if we bring back the time stone to the time when we took it out of the timeline, then everything will be okay because that time stone needs to be there in order that time stone is that fixed point basically.
Okay.
It needs to be there in order for everything to happen the way it's supposed to happen. It always has to be there, or else it becomes type 2 time travel.
So it's also
Makes sense,
partially
kind of.
type 1.
Yes,
Okay.
it's a mishmash. I would call this maybe Endgame is trying to be type 4 type time travel, which has never been done before, which is why it's confusing and there are plot holes everywhere. It's
Yeah.
almost trying to be all three at once. Uh,
Yeah. Okay,
it
I
just
can see what you're I can kind
yes,
of see. I'm
what's going
less
on.
confused.
Okay.
You explained it in a way that made sense, which was good.
Okay, good. I'm glad you're with me because that hopefully means that people listening at home are also still with me. Um, so let's say again that this is quote unquote type 4 time travel that Marvel is trying to introduce to us for the first time. So this does not fix a lot of the things that happen though. So I'm going to start, I have a list of little time incongruencies here. I'm going to start with actually the easiest one, which is Loki. Okay, so Battle
Okay.
of New York. I think we just learned this like version of time travel, right, from Bruce and the Ancient One. Loki gets away with the Space Stone because Tony and Ant-Man fuck up on account of angry 2012 Bruce accidentally knocking the Space Stone out of the case and right to Loki's hands, and Loki just boop, he pops away.
Yeah.
It's never resolved. It's never revisited. And in theory, that would affect so much more because let's say like at the end, Steve, his duty is to go back and return those stones, right, to their original times. So we don't have this weird paradox and everything goes as it should. But that's not going to reset what just happened, would it? Like that is never explained. Um, in theory, the space stone he's returning is the one to 1970. So them going back is a totally separate thing. Loki's still in theory in that time, if that is their present, he would still get away, and therefore it's type 2. They're creating a separate universe. It's
Okay.
inconsistent, right?
Okay.
Do you
Yes.
understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah,
Like it would have to be a separate universe that they accidentally created.
yeah.
So we have
Okay.
like I'm gonna call it timeline A, let's say.
Okay.
Timeline A is the MCU as we know it, going down a straight line. At one point near the end, in Endgame, a bunch of different people loop back, right? As we
Hmm.
know of the movie. And it becomes the type 2 time travel where the butterfly effect happens.
Okay.
And they went
Hmm.
back. Loki gets away with the space stone. That's not going to affect that main timeline here. You guys can't see at home, but I'm holding up my arm in a straight line in front of
She's
the
trying
camera.
to help me with visuals, guys.
I don't know if it's working. So there's a straight line, MCU, normal timeline. We go back in Endgame to when is it? Like 2012, right?
Hmm.
Loki getting the space stone in that one, whoop, creates a little alternate timeline in which
Okay.
he always got the space stone and they never, well, maybe in that future eventually they would get it back. But that would change so many things, right?
Hmm.
Would mean that theory the Avengers would have to stay together for a bit longer because their mission wasn't over. Like they have to stay together longer to find Loki and get the space stone. It would probably change a lot of things about the MCU in the future because the space stone is like at the center of a lot of shit. Um, what else? I'm not going to theorize too much else because that's getting away from my plot hole stuff. But
Yeah,
do you
yeah, yeah. No, just that I saw someone say that maybe this is the entry point to the Loki series on Disney
yeah,
Plus.
yeah, which I could totally buy. I feel
Yep.
like there's a reason why the camera lingered and on him the way it did. Um, and that I feel like supports the theory that this was just type 2 time travel all along, where they're creating alternate universes. But I will get back to that.
Which is going to be weird,
Yes.
especially if they want to reintegrate in the future. Do you think
Yes.
that's possible for them to reintegrate them at all? Or would he have to
Reintegrate
like
as in
somehow,
like
or would he some have to universe hop or dimension hop or whatever it would be, timeline hop, sorry.
possibly if they wanted to do that. I don't think, well, I mean, Tony Stark randomly figured out how to use time travel, so maybe they could figure out a universe.
I'm sure he has
Um,
research on it somewhere.
but I feel like again, my storytelling instincts go against what what they often do here. So what I would do is just use this opportunity to create like a basically like a TV series timeline versus like the MCU timeline going forward. But again, they haven't been very clear on what is even happening in the MCU timeline going forward. I think everything is really up in the air right now. We have
Yeah,
no idea what's going to happen,
right.
um, or even how Steve staying in the past affected things. But I will get to that in a
Okay.
moment.
All right.
Okay. Two, also at the Battle of New York, Cap fighting himself
Hmm. Oh
in
yeah,
order
that is
to,
major.
yes,
Like as fun as it is,
yes.
yikes.
If they had done it just him fighting himself, they could have explained it away like how they did initially with, oh, it's Loki and he's,
Right.
fighting Loki or whatever. Cool, sure. But there's a key thing that Loki could not have known, and
Hmm.
that Steve clearly didn't know at that point, is Steve from timeline A whispers in this, 2012 Steve's ear, Bucky is still alive. And that gets him, to shock the past Steve, and he wins the fight, right? He knocks him out. But that means that going forward, 2012 Steve is going to think, or at least look into, Bucky being alive,
Right.
which is something he should not know for another 2 years, at least, in the timeline, right? Or maybe 2013, 2014, I
It's
can't
like two
remember
or
when Winter
three.
Soldier. Yeah. But he shouldn't know it at this time, right? So that's
Yeah.
another inconsistency. um, then in a similar vein, number three, like you said prior in this episode, where Cap is able to get the scepter from the Hydra agents, basically. I mean, they're
Hmm.
Shield agents, quote unquote, but we know they're Hydra, by saying to them, "Hail Hydra." Um, if that does create, an alternate timeline now, basically, then that Captain America living in that universe, the same one who knows that Bucky is still alive, and the same one who Loki is now missing, um, the Hydra agents there now think that he is a Hydra agent. And that brings, I assume, a whole load of like, Cap could be in danger. That would
Yeah,
change a lot of things. It would literally change all of Winter Soldier. Like,
that's true.
these two things alone, two and three
I
alone, change Winter Soldier.
My instinct is to spin that into a positive. Like, okay, he
Oh
could be
no,
a double
yeah.
agent and he could use their intel to find Bucky a lot
Yeah.
sooner because Bucky's working for Hydra,
Yes.
right? So like
Yeah.
I can't believe I forgot that. But so like my instinct is to spin that
It,
positively. But yeah, it's
well,
still
yeah.
bad and he's still in danger.
Well, like you said, like it's rife with like what could they do with this? Like if they did this on purpose, like kudos to them because they could go in any number of directions with this if they wanted to. I don't think they will because it seems like Chris Evans is pretty much done
Yeah.
with the MCU. But in theory, they could do so much cool stuff with this alternate universe shit.
Yeah, all of
Well,
it. Even the universe
Civil War
where
never happened.
he what?
I
Oh,
said
where
a
Civil
universe in
War.
which, yeah, because if
Yeah,
Steve knows earlier, I think he would probably tell Tony, like,
that's true. Yeah. That would
or
solve
at
a lot
least
of
they'd all
problems.
be together. So, yep. But go on.
Ugh, no, I was like, we can have a universe where Steve and Peggy both work for Shield. Like, that'd be nice. I'm sorry,
It
I'm
would be really
sentimental
cool.
at heart.
Okay, what else? Um, Gamora and Thanos and Nebula. That's a whole
Yeah,
other little,
that was wild.
yeah. The Nebula thing, it makes sense. Like her, if she is mostly like, a computer basically, that it's the same thing like let's say like you take a cell phone back in time, like which is the phone getting messages? Like they would both sync up basically, right? So you'd have two phones ringing at the same time.
Okay, yeah.
That's kind of what happens with Nebula. So that makes sense. I'm not gonna whatever. Like you can hand wave that away. But what doesn't make sense is okay, so Gamora left what I'm now calling Timeline A, the regular MCU timeline as we know it, right? She left in 2014 before she even meets the Guardians of the Galaxy, before they even become Guardians of the Galaxy.
Hmm.
She leaves with Thanos and Nebula, jumps to 2023,
Hmm.
and again, like I can kind of finger wave and away all the Battle of New York stuff, but this is different. Like, how does this how does this make sense? Like Thanos, so Thanos and Gamora left the prime timeline. Maybe I keep calling these different things, but they
The
left
Prime
their
line.
the prime line. They left 2014, the prime MCU timeline, came into the Endgame timeline, um, and fucked shit up. Uh, Quill, Star-Lord, sees Gamora from this time. She doesn't recognize him. Oh my God, so sad. Whatever. Um, sorry, I do care about them a lot, but my brain is
No,
hurting
I
from
know.
some of
Yeah.
this stuff. Um, so like, how does this make sense? So Thanos from 2014 dies from the Prime MCU timeline. Then how does he go on? How does anything go on? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I realize I have not said
So
anything.
like if he dies, how does Infinity War actually
Yeah,
happen?
exactly. That is exactly my point. Uh,
Yeah, I don't know.
it's the paradox, and that becomes the, you know, this is, I think, maybe an even separate version of time travel because it involves going into the future instead of the past. Usually we're talking about going to the past, right? Um, but this is about jumping from the future to, or, I'm sorry, the past to the future, and then totally screwing up any concept of what happens in the past future. That's a bad way to put it, I recognize.
In
Um,
Yeah.
but basically, I'm trying to figure out a better way to say this without presenting visuals because it is a podcast and time travel is hard to talk about just on a podcast.
Without
Um,
diagrams.
yeah, I cannot provide you diagrams via my voice alone. I'm not that good. Um, it doesn't, like, I can't think of a way currently to time travel wave away the fact that Thanos needs to still exist in that prime timeline.
In order for them to actually be
Yes,
where they are.
it can't be a closed loop if that's how it is. It can't even be the thing that, what do we call it? Type three, where like the main events need to happen and everything else can
Yeah,
change. Because
yeah.
that's a pretty huge main event, I would say, that Thanos needs to do the snap, right? Like,
Yeah, definitely.
so it has to be an alternate timeline, type two time travel situation. It has to be. There's literally no other way for this to make sense, right? Like,
I mean,
no
again,
way that I can wrap my mind around it.
I'm barely hanging on here as it is. I'm following, but I would not be able to give an answer to that.
Yeah.
Like, you're probably right. I don't think, based on what you've said,
Yeah.
they're just not, they're like me. They're not very good at time travel, I guess.
There's also, oh my God, there is another time travel version I thought forgot about. There's the grandfather paradox. Because, okay, so
Is this the
there,
I'm my own grandpa type of thing?
no, worse almost. So the I'm my own grandpa is actually type one, the closed loop, right? Because
Oh, okay, okay. Sure.
you'd always go back in time to become your own grandpa. The grandpa paradox, I hate that I have to say all this.
I love it.
This relates to Nebula shooting her old self. So if you go back in time and accidentally kill your own grandfather, you would cease to exist. But then how would you be able to go back in time and kill your own grandfather?
Okay.
Who would be the one killing your grandfather, right?
Right.
It shouldn't be able to. It all, I mean, I guess it's, I didn't mention it because basically kind of is the, it could kind of be the type two timeline, but often when the grandfather paradox is like shown in fiction, the person, let's say I go back and I shoot my grandfather, I would then just like dissolve. I would cease to exist. And that's how it's portrayed in fiction. So Nebula ends up shooting and killing her old self, but she's fine. Therefore, using the logic of all these time travels I have described, it can't be the grandfather paradox. It can't be a closed loop because she needs to exist in the future to even be herself there. It has to be an alternate timeline, right?
Okay.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry again. I wish I could have diagrams for you
Like
guys.
she just assumed her own place. I don't, yeah, it would have to be.
Because if she so Nebula is now dead, so she could never go back to her own timeline and grow up to be the Nebula she is now to come back and shoot herself. Does that make sense? Kind
No,
of. I'm so
I'm
sorry.
in pain. It's okay.
I can't think of a better way to describe
This
it,
is why
but
I tend to like acknowledge that there is usually probably something wrong with how time travel is portrayed, but I
yeah,
just ignore it because otherwise my brain hurts.
that's fair. See, I
Which is
love
also
this
why I
kind of
will
stuff.
never write a time travel book. I cannot do it.
Last but not least, because it's the worst of them all, and I call it the Peggy and Sharon Carter.
Oh yeah,
Um,
that's
so this relates to Steve going back in time and staying back in time, right?
hmm
So if it was the closed loop timeline, which we have already basically disproven, but I'm going to entertain it for a moment just to see how ridiculous it would be if it was true, right?
okay.
So if Steve goes back in time and he was always going to go back in time and stay there with Peggy, that means that the husband that Peggy mentions in, I believe it's Winter Soldier, is that right? She mentions in a video like, "Oh, I got married to, and it's a man that Steve actually saved during the war," um, something like that.
Yeah.
So she has a husband, she grows old, she gets married, she has kids and grandkids, her nieces Sharon Carter, etc. So if the closed time loop theory was actually the way time travel worked in the MCU here, that means that Steve was that husband all along, which, as you can imagine, doesn't make sense on multiple levels because how how does first of all how does Peggy hide Steve from like everyone who knew him? Um, there's no way that like again like Steve is a recognizable guy.
Yeah.
Um, two, how does Sharon in the future not know that Steve is her uncle? So she just knowingly like kisses her uncle. Like he's got to be still pretty recognizable. Like there's no way that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, three, I'm pretty sure I would have to like fact check this, but I'm pretty sure that Peggy and Howard were like still like friends up until even Tony was born. How do you hide Steve Rogers' existence from Howard Stark, who was searching for him for so long? Like,
Yeah.
that also does not make sense.
Yeah.
So it cannot be the closed time loop, which
This just
means,
further supports my alternate timeline theory
yes,
because it's the only way I can justify Steve doing
yes,
that in the first place.
yes. But see, the thing with that is that if he is creating this alternate timeline by staying basically in the past,
hmm
then then how does he end up back in what I'm calling the prime timeline, right? In the future.
I, I
How is that not a separate timeline?
I will leave you to figure that out.
I don't know.
I'm just going to accept it.
It could be again, like I said, that he lived out his life in those quote unquote 5 seconds that Bruce gives him. Maybe he took a little
Yeah.
bit longer than 5 seconds, and then uses the Pym particles to as an old man. So like he goes back, he lives an entire alternate timeline. Then instead of just dying in that timeline, he's like, boop, Pym particles, and
I mean,
boops back.
that's my guess. That's literally
Yeah,
yeah.
it could be. I
I'm
would have
going
to
with
say
it.
it would have to be because otherwise it just doesn't make sense to me.
Y'all can't take this away from me. This is what
Yeah.
happened.
Um, but all of this really long, in-depth analysis, I guess, of how time travel works is also just to say that they did not explain it adequately in the
Yeah.
film. Um, because again, going by the film logic, what it tells us is that amalgamation of all three of those, right? That like I think Bruce says at some point, this is before he even meets the Ancient One, so maybe we can't even take this to be true, but he says like if you go back into the past, then that past becomes your future, aka you are always going to go back into the past, right? To do whatever.
hmm
And then the future then becomes your past. Confusing way and alienates, I'm sure, much of the audience. But that just basically means that you have your own timeline that you are traveling down, and even though you're
Right.
going back in time, you're still moving forward through your own time,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
So then by returning those stones to the moment right after they were taken, essentially, that's supposed to save all those alternate timelines that are basically dystopia timelines bursting off, and save everything. But I don't think that negates a lot of what we talked about. It certainly doesn't negate what Steve did because he returned all the stones and then did all that anyways.
Yeah.
And especially, I think, doesn't negate the Gamora and Loki disappearing. Um, Loki disappeared with the Space Stone, which they returned to, or they got and returned to from 1970, right?
Hmm.
It wasn't even the Space Stone from 2012. So that, in theory, still happens because they didn't take the scepter away until after that happened, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So in theory, they would be returning the scepter to after Loki zooped away. Then the whole Gamora thing, even if they return the Power Stone to that original point in time, they would still have, like, Gamora and Thanos still went back in time and Thanos died. Because by that logic, if they went back and put the Power Stone back and just kind of reset the timeline, so Thanos is still there and therefore Guardians of the Galaxy can still happen, that means that there's still a version of Thanos out there to be afraid of. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I
That is
don't
fucked up.
know. It's very confusing. And again, there's any number of ways that you can explain this away, that you can, I don't know, analyze it, talk about it, but it doesn't excuse the fact that they could have explained it a little bit better and
Yeah.
saved us from being like, oh my God, what's going to happen in the MCU going forward?
Yeah,
Um,
because that is now that really legitimate is a huge question. I know we talked about this at the end of the
yes,
Infinity War episode, but like literally,
where are
I
we
feel
going?
like it. I feel like it's where it's like one of the posters in this movie is like
Yeah.
where did they go? Like where do we go from
Where did
here?
they go? Where do we go from here? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's literally true. And I like, I know that they're like Far Spider-Man Far From Home is in theory being touted as like a direct sequel to this movie.
Oh,
I don't
really?
see how
Okay.
that can be anymore. What
Yeah.
parent in their right mind, after losing their kid for 5 years, suddenly lets him go across the sea to Europe?
Yeah, I don't know.
um, so I feel like that has to be set before Infinity War, like logically, right? Kind of,
I I would
maybe.
think so, but like,
I don't know. So again, like all of our preconceived notions about going forward from phase four from here, completely, I have no fucking clue. I have
yeah,
no idea.
I have no clue. I still all I still know is that they're still doing Eternals
Hmm.
and I still want Celestials. And as far as I know, there's still a chance for me to get what I want. So
That's true. I'll still
feeling
be
good.
here for Captain Marvel 2 and Black
Oh yeah.
Widow. I'll still be here. I think I was talking with my family after we watched this, and I was saying how like I feel like dead inside because it's been a huge part of me for a long time. A
Hmm.
lot of my, I would argue, very formative years were spent with the MCU and loving the MCU and these characters. So for it to be just done, these characters are done. This was their swan song, a lot of them. Um, that that takes a little bit of me with it, you know.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I might not be as like intensely into it. I might kind of become just a normal moviegoer to these kind of movies. Um, I don't know if I have it in me to care and analyze them as much as we're doing for these, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
But I still will be there and I still will enjoy them.
That's fair, I think.
And I don't know if you feel the same way, but
I don't know if I feel entirely the same way. I think to a certain degree, I will probably, I mean, I'll still go see all of them.
yeah,
Um, but it was these characters that I was attached to. There are still characters that I'm attached to in it, um, going forward. So I don't know.
yeah,
Maybe.
yeah. I don't know, like I said, like if I'll be as intensely into it, but like you said, like I still care a lot about these characters.
Yeah. I
Like,
I don't think that I'm I don't think I'm strong enough to let it go entirely.
yeah.
So I definitely see staying part of MCU fandom is definitely in my future. So
Yeah. I don't think I will ever care as much about any group of characters in the MCU as much as I cared about the original six. But that is also, I think, partially, as you know, because we have, a very biased connection with them.
Yeah.
Um, as as you probably all know, hopefully, maybe all know. I think we explained in the first episode
Yeah,
why.
we haven't gone back,
Yeah,
so maybe this is the perfect time to do it.
true. So the reason, if you haven't listened to our first episode, or if you've joined us since then, um, the reason why we chose the name Avenge Girls and Friends, it's actually kind of a riff off of basically what we call our friend group. So we call ourselves sounds so haughty. We call ourselves the Knox Avengers or the Knox Avengers. We all met in 2012, the year that Avengers came out, at Knox College in Galesburg, Illinois, and became incredibly weirdly fast friends. Like I don't think that's ever happened to me before with any other
No.
group of people on the planet. Um, and for some reason, all of us were like, we should, like have like a group name, right? And again, the Avengers had just come out. I think our student union had like just shown the Avengers, and I think we all had gone to see it, I believe.
I don't even
Um,
remember.
I'm pretty sure, 90% sure,
We
but
should
don't
have
quote me
known
on
we were
that.
documenting history.
I know. But we all decided at dinner that night, in the caf, we were like, we should be the Knox Avengers, and we each picked like characters for each other. And literally, it'll be 7 years, I think, in September, right?
Yeah.
That we've been friends now. Um, so basically, as long as the Avengers have been a team, we have been friends. And so you can imagine, um,
Oh, we've been a team. We've been the
I
Avengers as
know.
long as the Avengers have been the Avengers. Oh my God.
That just made me cry too.
Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh God. Sorry, guys. Oh man. That's just
Oh,
like a really stunning realization to make.
yeah.
Wow.
I like said it and
So
didn't think
like,
about it.
so
Yeah, so that's why we chose this name. That's why this means so much to us. And why we'll be forever changed by
yeah,
this phase ending in the MCU, this end of the Infinity Saga.
it literally will
Yeah,
never be the same.
yeah. Now we're both crying.
It's fine. Oh God. Oh God.
Oh my God.
Oh.
Maybe that's a good place to end it.
What?
Maybe that's a good place to end it. Do you have anything else
Maybe?
we want to say? We've been talking for almost 2 hours.
I guess. I feel like we should say something upbeat
We should.
just for the end. Yeah, I don't know. Oh boy.
It just caught me by surprise. Again, I said those words and then both of us were like, oh
Oh.
no.
Do we even want to like talk about like what we're doing next or
Can. Yeah. We're taking, I believe we're taking like a week break or so. I have
something
to look
like
at the
that?
schedule, but a little break. And then obviously we're done with the MCU. We're not doing the MCU anymore. I know we're called the Avenge Girls and Friends, but like because our friend group who guests on occasion we're the Knox Avengers, right?
Also,
So
the
that's why,
friends are also the other franchises.
yes, that is very true. It's a double meaning here.
Yeah.
Um, but so moving on, we're not going to be doing the MCU. We are first going to be looking at two movies featuring badass women. We're going to be doing, I believe, Tomb Raider first, the
Yes.
2018 Tomb Raider.
Yep.
And then Lucy with Scarlett Johansson. And then after that, because I have an agenda, we're going to be doing the Riddick movies with Vin Diesel, Pitch Black, Chronicles of Riddick, and Riddick.
What is your
Um,
agenda?
oh, my agenda is just I like the Riddick movies, even though
I was
like
like, is the agenda just to make me watch them? Because I mean, it's working.
it kind of is. That's partially the agenda. The second part is that like I feel, and this goes back to like um the very premise of making this podcast is that we both of us really like movies that I don't know how to say this
A
nicely,
certain
like
subset
a
of
subset of the male species really fervently enjoy, and this certain subset is often very rude and sexist,
And
misogynist,
gatekeepy about.
gatekeepy, homophobic, etc. about these things that we still very much love. And we want to provide analysis of these things from, a feminist perspective, a queer perspective, these differing perspectives that you don't normally see in these movies. And I feel like the Riddick movies, and even Lucy and Tomb Raider to an extent, they're very much, the Riddick movies at least, are very much male driven,
Hmm.
and they can be sexist movies. So we're going to talk about that.
I'm gonna yell a lot probably.
Yes. Yes, you
I'm
are.
ready.
Um, they can be kind of gross, but they are also just, I think, very good genre movies. Each one is kind of a different genre, which is interesting. I don't know if they did that on purpose. Um, like Pitch Black it's a straight up horror film in my opinion, and it's so good. It's my favorite. Well, you'll be fine. It's not
Okay.
like that scary. It is scary. It's a horror film, but it's not
Okay.
terrifying. Um, anyways, all that is to say, we'll be doing those basically for our like summer mini session. In theory, the episodes are going to be a bit shorter just because we're busier during the summer. At least I am. Um, but then I think starting in August, we're doing like all of the Star Wars movies, which is Gabry's like one main passion. And of
Yeah.
course, I also love Star Wars, but not as much, not like Gabry loves Star Wars. So yeah, I don't know. We were just crying like a minute or so earlier, so I don't know
It's
how else
like,
to end this other than being like, "We'll see you soon."
oh,
Talking about Tomb Raider.
so I can think of like one thing maybe. So we've kind of neglected the hero chart just
Oh,
because
shite.
we're
Yeah,
just totally, yeah, behind
we
on that.
get you.
But so so Casey went to see Endgame this morning,
Hmm.
and he came back, and first he threw my own words back at me because the first thing I texted him last night was, babe, that was so intense. And so the first thing he did was be like, babe, that was so intense. I'm like, don't copy me, get your own thing to say. um
How dare you?
but and then he was like, listen, all I gotta say is I need Tony Stark to be at the top of that hero chart next week when your episode goes up. And I'm
Oh, he
like,
will.
I was like, I think they all made it, but yeah,
I
definitely.
think they did too. Um, I don't even know if we need to do hero questions at this point because
And I'm mad
I'm
because
so
they're,
sad.
oh no, I'm mad there are like two separate lines of dialogue that are perfect for that, and I don't remember what either of them is. But again, this is a movie that answers the hero questions all on its own. It is in the actual movie.
Yeah, that is very, very true. The hero questions are built into the like DNA of
Yep.
Endgame. Um, so we will release the chart. I'll put all of them on there for all of the movies that we have been neglecting. We got busy.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
had Star Wars Celebration. We had to prepare for Star Wars Celebration. I was busy at work. I had a convention at work. It was a lot. Gabby's always busy with your work.
Yeah.
We're busy people. But we will get out the chart
Oh
in
yeah.
time. We promise. XOXO. I don't know. Was there anything else?
Nope, I
So
think
so
that's
out of
it.
it. This episode, I'm so sorry, is probably very rambly, and it's a lot of me talking. So editing this is gonna be like me being like, "Oh my God."
I think it'll be hilarious, but yeah.
Shut up, Cait. Okay.
All right.
Well, as always, we are on Twitter at AvengeGirls or on Facebook, AvengeGirls and Friends. We also, I think we mentioned last time, we do have a Patreon now. I think it's just AvengeGirls, right?
Yeah. Yeah, search Avenge Girls or Avenge Girls and Friends, and you should be able to find us. And we have a WordPress site that Caitlin made where you can find our full schedule as well.
Yes. So,
So check that out. Leave us a review if you want to, become a patron if you want to.
or just
And
interact with us. We love
yeah,
talking to people, as you can imagine.
definitely. Always
And
want to. So, all right. So, for the last time on the MCU, Avenge Girls out.
oh my God.